Okay, and good evening once again. Now that our YouTube audience has joined us, we're broadcasting both on YouTube and on Facebook Live this evening. And we've got quite a bit to discuss. Again, we're still dealing with the threat for a very significant heavy rainfall event over the next several days, and also a severe weather threat as well. So let's go ahead and jump into it real quick here. We're going to start by taking a look at the visible satellite imagery across the area this evening. And you can see we're pretty much across our area have been overcast for most of the day, but obviously we haven't been dealing with any showers or thunderstorms yet. That activity is actually still back to the west here across central Texas. You can see this very thick layer of clouds up here near the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They're actually dealing with some severe weather up there this afternoon and evening. And this whole area of cloudiness over here is associated with a cold front that I'm actually going to show you here in just a second. And that's the activity that's going to be slowly moving into our area and bringing us all this rainfall over the next few days. As I mentioned, this is our radar imagery across the region. You can see a few strong thunderstorms up near the Dallas area, but otherwise not a whole lot going on across the area this evening. And I mentioned last night I'm still getting over a cold, so bear with my coughing just a bit. But really not a whole lot going on yet. That's all going to change, it looks like, by probably about mid-morning tomorrow. That's when all of this activity will get going across the region. And I should have mentioned this at the top. I said that yesterday too, I forgot. But if you have any questions as we go along the way here through this broadcast, if you're on Facebook Live, you can actually post your questions in the comments section of Facebook. And if you're on YouTube, you can actually send your questions. Let me put the little graphic up here. You can send them to my email, which is donald.jones@noaa.gov, and we'll answer your questions after we get through a little bit of this later on. But if anybody has any questions, there are no dumb questions, so feel free to shoot them out there. Or any feedback, positive or negative, one way or the other, about what we're doing here tonight, feel free to post those or send that in as well. So this is basically what we're looking at this afternoon and evening. You can see that cold front that I mentioned back to the west across New Mexico, and that's what's causing all of that cloudiness and those showers and thunderstorms across central Texas this afternoon. This whole system over here, all of this mess, is going to be slowly drifting into Texas later on tonight and into early tomorrow morning, and that's what's going to bring us all of our rainfall. This is taking a look at Tuesday. You can see all of that kind of shifts over into our area. That's why we've got this area highlighted in red here. That's our flash flooding threat. And then, of course, the area highlighted in yellow here is our severe weather threat. And we're going to have a little bit of both, it looks like, tomorrow and Wednesday as well. And you can see this low pressure area here. It kind of gets over here, and then it's just going to sit there. And that's why we're going to be dealing with this rainfall and this severe weather threat for such a long time, because it's just going to sit there for several days. This is Wednesday, and you can see we still have our flash flood and our severe weather threat. Thursday, low pressure system is still sitting there. Friday, low pressure is still sitting there. And then finally by Saturday, it starts to lift out. But even on Saturday, we're going to be looking at the possibility of at least a chance of showers or thunderstorms. Before everything gets out here, it looks like this low pressure shifts off finally out of the area by Sunday. But we're looking at a pretty long duration event, anywhere from about 4 to 5 days, depending on exactly where you are, because this low pressure area is just going to be sitting over this area for such a long period of time. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritties of the precipitation totals here. And you'll notice if you watched us last night, I told you that these were subject to change, and these have changed. In some cases, they've changed in terms of total amounts, and in other cases, they've changed in terms of when we're expecting them to fall. So, and even this forecast is still a little iffy, even though we're expecting it to start as early as tomorrow. Since this is such a long duration event, we're still looking at, the heaviest rainfall not for another possibly 2 or 3 days. So this forecast is still very much subject to change. But this is what we're looking at right now. Don't necessarily focus on the specific numbers, just the general trends of where we're expecting the highest versus the lowest precipitation totals. So this is the forecast for tomorrow, basically. And our highest area of rainfall is going to be concentrated over portions of southeast Texas. And that's because that's where that low pressure area is going to be. It's going to be located over southern and central Texas. So obviously southeastern Texas is going to kind of bear the brunt of the rainfall accumulation, at least for the first half of this event, which will be Tuesday and into Wednesday. So not looking at too much, 1 to 2 inches across southeast Texas. And considering how dry we've been over the last few weeks, we can definitely handle that. So if we only see 1 or 2 inches tomorrow, we're not going to see anything in the way of real flood threat with just 1 or 2 inches. And then we actually get progressively lower and lower as we go further into southwest Louisiana, and especially across Acadiana. Chances are pretty good that most areas across Acadiana are not going to see hardly any rainfall tomorrow. It's just probably going to be another kind of like we've experienced today, overcast, windy, but not too much in the way of rainfall. Most of the rainfall is going to be back to the west on Tuesday. Now, by Wednesday, that's when rainfall totals really start to ramp up, and this is where we're starting to get concerned. By Wednesday, we're looking at rainfall totals across southeast Texas anywhere from about 4 to 5 inches. And considering we will have already had the 1 to 2 inches of rainfall that we're expecting on Tuesday, on top of that, now we're starting to get into the concern for our flash flooding threat on Wednesday across southeast Texas. As we go into southwest Louisiana, we're looking at 2 to 3 inches of rainfall, which is pretty good totals, and that's definitely something we're not expecting to really cause a big concern, but as we continue through the week, southwest Louisiana is going to get into more of that concern area for flash flooding. And keep in mind that while these particular numbers, these are forecasted over a large area, we could have local areas of, maybe 50, 100 miles or so that could get that what we call a training effect, where the rain just constantly moves over the same area over and over again. And that can really ramp up rainfall accumulation totals from what we're showing here. So locally, that's what we mean when we say locally higher amounts possible. So whereas most areas may see 4 or 5 inches on Wednesday across southeast Texas, if you get under one of those bands, those numbers could go even higher. Okay, and so as we move into Thursday, we kind of see the highest rainfall totals start to shift a little bit further east into southwest Louisiana. You can see the 3 to 4 inch bullseye here, pretty much right over Beauregard, Vernon Parish, and then Newton County in Texas there. And then we've got a very large swath here of about 3 inches, pretty much covers all of southwest Louisiana and southeast Texas. 1 to 2 inches across Acadiana. But add this on top of what we're expecting to see on Wednesday, and if we haven't started seeing a flash flood threat on Wednesday across this area, we're certainly expecting it to be a concern by Thursday. And then going into the latter part of the week, Friday and into the weekend, Saturday, most of this activity starts to shift off to the east. Let me get out of the way here so you can see it. Most of the heavier rain here shifts off more towards the New Orleans area, where you're seeing 2 to 3 inches of rain, and then progressively less as we go further back. Acadiana is going to see about 1 inch, with anywhere from about 1/4 to 1/2 inch Friday and Saturday expected across southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. And most of this activity is most likely to fall on Friday. Like I mentioned, Saturday, we've got fairly low rain chances, probably only about 20 to 30% of any lingering showers associated with this system. So most of this rainfall is actually going to fall on Friday. So put it all together, and this is the result. And we're not too much different than what we saw yesterday in terms of total rainfall accumulation. The bullseye, or the area of maximum rainfall, has kind of shifted just a little bit to the west, more across southeast Texas, whereas yesterday it was more across southwest Louisiana. But looking at that 8 to 10 inch bullseye over here across southeast Texas, and then we get progressively lower as we go further east. But even across Acadiana, we're still looking at anywhere from about 5 to 6 inches total. This is basically from tomorrow through Sunday. So this is the whole storm total for the entire system put together. So across the South Louisiana, we're basically looking for about 5 inches across southeast Louisiana, and then getting progressively higher as we go further west into southwest Louisiana and southeast Texas. And obviously the largest bullseye there is up to right around 10 inches, which is about what we were anticipating yesterday. So the totals haven't changed a whole lot, but the timing of it has a little bit, and the location, or the spatial aspect of it, as we call it, has changed a little bit as well. We'll get into more detail about which day, what's going to fall, and where, when we go through our county by county and parish by parish look here a little bit later on. Okay, now in addition to dealing with the flash flood threat, which obviously with up to 10 inches of rainfall possible is definitely going to be a concern. We're also going to be dealing with the possibility of severe weather as well. Now, this is the Storm Prediction Center's severe weather outlook for tomorrow. And you can see the areas outlined here in yellow. That is what we call the slight risk for severe weather. The areas in the dark green here is what we call the marginal risk for severe weather. And then the very light green over here and the white areas here, this is where we're not expecting any significant severe weather on Tuesday. Now, the marginal risk for severe weather, that is the lowest category of severe weather, which basically means that there may be one or two strong to severe storms, but we're certainly not expecting anything widespread across this area. The slight risk area is kind of the next step up from the marginal risk area, and that covers basically western Jefferson County, Hardin County, and Tyler County over in southeast Texas for tomorrow. And that means that you've got a little bit better chance of seeing at least a few strong to severe thunderstorms across that area on Tuesday. Now, as we head into Wednesday, the entire area is in a slight risk for severe weather. So whereas just the western part of our area was in that slight risk Tuesday, as the low pressure starts to meander a little bit closer to us, you see the entire area in that slight risk for severe weather. So our best chance for severe weather at this point looks like it's going to be on Wednesday, which coincidentally also lines up with the day that we're really expecting probably the most rainfall. Excuse me. So Wednesday and into Thursday are really the days we're going to want to watch for the real significant kind of brunt of this system. We do have a flash flood watch in effect. This was issued earlier this afternoon, and you can see it highlighted here in the green area. It basically runs kind of catty-corny here across southwest Louisiana. It does include Calcasieu, Allen Parish, and Rapides, and then areas west of there. And this is going to be in effect until Wednesday evening. Now, if we do see the rainfall totals that we're anticipating, chances are high that that'll be extended even further. But for the time being, we just wanted to put it out to kind of get people's attention as to what's coming along here over the next few days. And for those of you who don't know, a flash flood watch means that conditions are favorable for flash flooding to occur. In the same way that a tornado watch is indicative of favorable conditions for severe weather and tornadoes, a flash flood watch basically means the same thing. That flash flooding is not necessarily occurring, but that conditions will be favorable for it in the coming days. So in addition to a flash flood watch, we've also got a gale warning in effect for our offshore coastal waters. And if you haven't figured out by now, it's probably pretty self-explanatory that you don't want to be out in a small craft, in a small boat, over the next few days as we're dealing with this system, because besides all the rain and the severe weather, it's going to get very windy. And you probably noticed that if you stepped outside this afternoon. It's been pretty breezy out there. We've had winds gusting to about 25 miles an hour across the Lake Charles area this afternoon. And that's pretty much been how it's been all across the region. That's actually going to get a little bit stronger, it looks like, as we go into tomorrow and maybe even into Wednesday as well. That'll kind of linger, at least for the morning hours. We'll be looking at winds anywhere from about 20 to 25 miles per hour, gusting to 35, and that's inland. They're going to be even stronger offshore. So obviously you don't want to be out in any kind of a sailing vessel or any kind of vessel for that matter over the next couple of days. So this gale watch is in effect until Wednesday evening. And as we start to see those stronger winds in our offshore waters, that'll be upgraded to a gale warning. A coastal flood advisory is also in effect, and for much of the same reason. When we get very strong winds out of the south, which is what we're going to be dealing with, these winds coming out of the south, they're coming off the Gulf of Mexico. So they're pushing that water inland, much the same way that you would see with a tropical storm or a hurricane. When you get southerly winds, all of that water off the Gulf gets pushed inland, and a lot of times the water will actually, get over some of the coastal roadways in this area and could impact some of the coastal homes if they're built fairly close to the beach or along the coast down there. So we do have a coastal flood advisory in effect for that, and that's in effect again until Wednesday evening. And that may need to be extended just depending on how strong those winds stay up as we go through Wednesday and into Thursday. Of course, obviously with a lot of rainfall, that rain all has to go somewhere eventually. Even if it is flooding your street, eventually that's going to run off into our area rivers. So we're also anticipating pretty significant rises in our area rivers. This is the Calcasieu River at Glen Mora. This blue line here represents what we've observed. This is the past over here, what we've seen over the past few days. The purple line here represents the forecast, and you can see beginning by tomorrow afternoon that river starts to rise pretty significantly up into this orange area, and that represents flood stage for the Calcasieu River at Glen Mora. And you can see it continues to rise up through what we call minor flood stage all the way through Saturday. And depending on exactly how much rainfall we see, this is actually a fairly conservative estimate of rainfall that we're expecting to see. This only takes into consideration rainfall for the next 48 hours. So it doesn't include rain that could potentially fall Thursday or Friday or even Saturday. So this could go even much higher than this is indicating here. But right now, Calcasieu at Glen Mora is forecast to crest at about 14.3 feet. But if we do get more rainfall, that could go even higher. I'll also mention we do, obviously, since the river is going to go into flood, we have issued a flood warning for the Calcasieu at Glen Mora until further notice. This is the Calcasieu River at saltwater barrier, and it's not expected to rise quite as quickly, but it is forecast to get into above flood stage by sometime early Thursday afternoon. And again, we are anticipating that this could rise in potentially significantly more than you see here if we start to see those higher rainfall totals that we're kind of expecting. Okay. Now, I mentioned the coastal water advisory. I probably should have put these slides back with that. But this graph here actually shows our tides. Now, the blue line represents the normal tides that we're supposed to see. We're looking at Calcasieu Pass. The black line is the predicted tide. This is what we're expecting to actually see as a result of those very strong south winds over the next few days, and to a lesser extent, the rainfall as well. But you can see here, we're anywhere from about, looks like we're about 2 to 3 feet above where we would normally be if we weren't dealing with this kind of a situation. So, and that would be on Wednesday, will be our kind of our biggest rise there from our normal tides at Calcasieu Pass. This is Sabine Pass, and you can see much of the same, a very large rise from where we would normally be. That looks like about a 2.5 foot rise there from where we would normally be. So when you've got water that's 2.5 feet higher than you would ordinarily expect it to be, obviously you can see why we would expect coastal flooding. This is Port Arthur. Not quite as high, only about maybe a foot higher than normal, but that's still enough to cause some minor flooding in some areas. And then here in Lake Charles, this is the actual lake. We're anticipating, again, about anywhere from about a foot to 1.5 feet or so above normal for the tides. One more here, freshwater locks. This is over in Vermilion. And again, we're looking at about a foot to 1.5 feet rise over in that area. So breaking down a few of the impacts that we're expecting, obviously outdoor activities not recommended Tuesday through Friday, as we're going to be dealing with essentially a deluge of water, as somebody so most eloquently put it yesterday. So obviously you don't want to be outside dealing with any of that. Besides just the water, there's also the severe weather threat as well, as we mentioned here. And we could have the possibility of all three forms of severe weather: tornadoes, damaging winds, and large hail. Although it appears at this point that the greatest threat as far as severe weather goes is going to come from damaging winds, not so much from tornadoes or large hail, although those can't be completely ruled out. So we could potentially, see a tornado or two in the area, or a little bit of hail as well. But it looks like the biggest threat's going to be damaging winds within the thunderstorms, and then we've also got the winds that we're going to be expecting even outside of those thunderstorms that could cause some minor damage as well. And obviously flash flooding, not expected, but possible Wednesday and Thursday, really. We're not expecting too much in the way of flash flooding tomorrow. The flash flood threat really gets going, it looks like, Wednesday and Thursday. And of course, that could lead to the potential for impassable roads. Of course, homes and property along area rivers could be threatened by floodwaters. That's going to be highly dependent on just how much rainfall we receive and how much those rivers rise. But some of the early projections have a few of our forecast sites actually rising to what we call major flood stage, which is a very serious situation where you start to see impacts to land and to homes near rivers. So that's something that's going to bear very close monitoring here over the next few days. And as I've mentioned several times now, the winds will increase. So even outside of thunderstorms, we're going to be looking at some fairly strong winds gusting anywhere from 30 to 35 miles per hour, which could result in some tree branches getting knocked over and knocked into some power lines. So we may see a few sporadic power outages associated with that. And considering how much rainfall we're going to be dealing with and the potential for flash flooding, there may be some trouble getting out to some of those power lines to restore that power. So, that's just kind of something to bear in mind. Make sure you've got, working flashlights, working radios. Weather radio is always a very good bit of advice to keep on hand. So to summarize here, we've got an area of low pressure that's going to move into the area early tomorrow and basically stall out. It's just going to sit there for the next 3 days. So we're expecting showers and thunderstorms essentially from Tuesday through Friday, with some thunderstorms being on the strong to severe side. That's going to especially be on Tuesday and Wednesday. Significant rainfall accumulations up to 11 inches. That other graphic had 10 inches. I know there's a little bit of a discrepancy there, but you get the idea. 10 to 11 inches, we're talking about a lot of water. And then, of course, area rivers are expected to go into flood. Now, I'm going to take just a second here and grab a sip of water here, and then we're going to go down the county by county and parish by parish and talk about each one individually and what you can expect to see. So bear with me here for just a second. I'm trying not to cough in your ear too much. Let me run down real quick before we go through this and see if anybody has any questions just about what we've discussed so far. And again, if you have a question and you're watching us on Facebook Live, you can post those questions in the comment section. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can send your questions to the email address on your screen there, which is donald.jones@noaa.gov. Or if those of you on Facebook are so inclined, you can also shoot me an email. I'll certainly be okay with that. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. First question is, how much rain is Lake Charles expecting from Steve? We're going to talk about that here in just a second as we go through this county by county and parish by parish. We will talk about Calcasieu Parish and the Lake Charles area. Veronica asks, some of us can't stream. Can you possibly give a short post on Facebook in words, of course? And we will be updating our Facebook and our Twitter sites both on a regular basis as we go through this event with the latest rainfall projections and the latest information regarding severe weather as well. So definitely keep an eye on that for those graphics and those updates. David asks, could this shift back to the east and give us 10 inches? Absolutely, yeah. Like I said before, these rainfall totals are very much subject to change, not only in terms of how much we receive, but also where we receive them. The thing about rainfall forecasting is it's incredibly difficult to forecast the exact amount of rain and where that rain's going to fall, because until the showers and thunderstorms actually develop, you really don't know with any degree of certainty where they're going to be, because showers and thunderstorms form on such a localized level that they really can't be predicted in advance until you actually see one forming. So it's very difficult to forecast the exact location and how much rain we're going to see for a particular area. So as I mentioned before, the important thing to look for is the trends. Are we trending towards higher precipitation numbers versus lower numbers? And are we, moving it steadily west or steadily east, almost like you would see, with a tropical system where, it slowly moves over a period of time. And so, yeah, certainly that bullseye of highest rainfall could shift back to the east as we get closer to the event, as some of our computer models and our guidance gets a better handle on what's expected. So best advice for that is just to stay tuned to either our social media or your local media outlets. KPLC has been doing a fantastic job keeping everyone up to date on this, and they'll certainly have all of that information as it comes, as we get a little bit closer and get into this event. Sandra asks, how big is the tornado threat for Vernon Parish for Tuesday and Wednesday, and how much rain? For Tuesday, let me jump back to that real quick. Our severe weather threat for Tuesday for Vernon Parish, which is right here, very, very low. You're in that, the western half, which includes Fort Polk, is in that marginal risk area, but the eastern half of the parish actually isn't in any risk area at all. So the chances of severe weather in Vernon Parish on Tuesday are very, very low. But as we go into Wednesday, now you're in that slight risk area where the chances for severe weather are a little bit higher. So Wednesday is going to be your better day, or your more likely day, if you're going to see severe weather in Vernon Parish. All right, let me jump back to where I was. All right, let's see. Ellie asked for an update on Avoyles Parish, please. We're gonna go through that here in just a second with each one of our individual parishes and counties. Let me jump over to the email, see if anybody's got anything from that. I'm not seeing any emails. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move on here and start breaking it down by each individual county. So we're gonna start off with Tyler County in southeastern Texas. And you'll notice, especially if you were on with us yesterday, that these rainfall totals have changed, as have the days that we're expecting them to occur. So the highest rainfall totals at this point we're expecting for Tyler County, and you'll probably see this, this kind of theme as we go through each one of these. Wednesday and Thursday are going to be our big days for most of the area in terms of total rainfall. So between Wednesday and Thursday, Tyler County is looking at, looks like about 8 3/4 inches of the 10.5 that they're forecast to get. So the vast majority of that rainfall is going to fall on Wednesday and Thursday. The winds, we're not going to be looking at winds too high across Tyler County. You'll also notice as we get further down towards the coast, that's where your higher winds are going to be, because those winds are all coming off the Gulf. So 10 to 15 miles per hour with gusts up to about 20 across Tyler County. So that shouldn't be too much of an issue for that area. We do have a slight risk for severe weather across Tyler County, and that's going to be for Wednesday as well as Tuesday, as we saw in those graphics just a little while ago. Moving on to Jasper County, again, biggest days for rainfall are going to be Wednesday and Thursday, with looks like that's actually 9 of the 11 inches that they're forecast to see in total is going to occur on Wednesday and Thursday. So Tuesday's pretty much going to be, you know, that day where we just kind of get some water on the ground. Not expecting it to be too bad. Wednesday and Thursday is going to be our big threats in terms of both severe weather and flash flood potential. Winds not expecting to be too high, 10 to 15, gusting to 20, and they are in the slight risk, or you are in, I should say, the slight risk for severe weather both Tuesday and Wednesday as well. Newton County, we're looking at, again, about 9 inches of rainfall Wednesday and Thursday anticipated, with only about 1 inch expected on Tuesday. And then Friday and Saturday, you know, you've got that lingering rainfall. We're looking at maybe about 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch for Friday and Saturday, for a grand total of right around 10 to 11 inches. Officially got 10.75 there, but again, don't focus so much on the specific numbers as much as on the trends there. Winds are going to be out of the southeast, 10 to 15, gusting to about 20, and Newton also in the slight risk for severe weather. Hardin County, we're dropping a little bit south here, so you'll notice first that the wind speeds are going to be a little bit higher. We're looking at 20 to 25 miles per hour, gusting up to 30. But the rainfall, since we're still kind of in the western parts of our area across southeast Texas, are still going to be about the same as far as time, the timing goes. So we're looking at about 8 inches of rain there on Wednesday and Thursday, with a total anywhere from about 10, 10.5, 10 to 3/4 up in that area. And Hardin is in the slight risk for severe weather. Jefferson County, again, more of the same, looking at about, looks like this little over 7 inches of the 10 inches they're going to receive is going to be on Wednesday and Thursday. Winds are going to be, as I mentioned, the highest are going to be right along the coast, and Jefferson County being right along the coast. We're going to be looking at gusts up to 35 miles per hour. Actually, we may see gusts maybe even a little bit higher than that, maybe towards closer to 40 miles per hour right along the coastline there, perhaps even as far north as Port Arthur. Slight risk for severe weather for Jefferson County as well, and tides are going to be running above normal as we mentioned. For Orange County, more of the same. Wednesday and Thursday is the big rain days. We're actually going to be looking at about 7 3/4 inches, I should say, of the 10.5 that we're anticipating falling on Wednesday and Thursday. Winds are still going to be just as high as in Jefferson County with gusts up to 35 miles per hour. And then, of course, the severe threat will continue for Orange County as well. Cameron Parish, you'll notice there's a few more numbers on here because I'm kind of given a range. The western half of the parish kind of is going to be in the early deluge of this, whereas the eastern half of the parish is going to be more of a Thursday, late Thursday type of situation. So I've kind of given a range here just to give you an idea of that. But even so, Wednesday and Thursday are going to be the highest days, with anywhere from 2 to 3.5 on Wednesday to 2.75 to 3.75 on Thursday. So you're looking at a total of about 5 to 6, maybe 5 to 7 inches, I should say, for the Wednesday-Thursday period across that area, with totals ranging anywhere from about 6.25 to about 10.5, just depending on exactly where you're at. And Cameron Parish being so sparsely populated to begin with, chances are decent that, some of those heavier rainfall may wind up in some of the lakes down there. But being right along the coast, it is going to be very windy, 25 to 30 with gusts to 35. Cameron Parish is going to be in that slight risk. They're going to be in the marginal risk on Tuesday and then in the slight risk on Wednesday. So the higher risk for Cameron Parish is going to be on Wednesday as far as severe weather goes. And of course, tides running above normal. For Calcasieu Parish, and this includes the Lake Charles, Sulphur, Moss Bluff area, as somebody was asking before, we're going to be looking at, let's see, we got about 8 inches of rain there expected on Wednesday and Thursday out of the total of the 10 inches that we're anticipating to see. Winds are still going to be pretty breezy across Calcasieu Parish, 20 to 25, gusting up to 35. Slight risk for severe weather on Wednesday, and we've got the marginal risk for severe weather on Tuesday. So again, for Calcasieu Parish, the greater threat for severe weather at this point appears to be on Wednesday. For Beauregard Parish, pretty much more of the same. Wednesday and Thursday, the big day, looking about 8.5 of the 10.25 that we're expected to see across Beauregard Parish occurring on Wednesday and Thursday. Winds are going to be out of the south-southeast, about 20 to 25, gusting to 30. And Beauregard Parish, same as the other two we just talked about, slight marginal risk on Tuesday, slight risk on Wednesday. So the greater threat for severe weather looks like it will be on Wednesday. For Vernon Parish, looking at about 8.5 inches on Wednesday and Thursday, 10 inches total, with winds not quite as high as we're getting, again, a little bit further north into central Louisiana. Southeast at 15 to 25, gusting to 30, with more of the same. The slight risk or the higher risk for severe weather is going to be on Wednesday for Vernon Parish. For Rapides Parish, looking at about 7.25 inches or so for Wednesday and Thursday of the 8 inches that they're anticipating to see, which is, you can actually see here, very little rainfall anticipated at this time for Rapides Parish for Tuesday, Friday, or Saturday. The vast majority of your rain is going to come, it looks like, on Wednesday and Thursday, with winds out of the south-southeast 15 to 20, gusting as high as 30, with, again, that slight risk for severe weather on Wednesday. Voiles Parish, moving a little bit to the northeast corner of our area that we're responsible for. We're looking at about 4.5 inches or so of rain on Wednesday and Thursday of the 5.5 inches that we're expected to see in total. And for those of you who tuned in to us last night, you'll notice that that 5.5 inches is quite a bit lower than what we were anticipating for Voiles Parish yesterday. And that all has to do with where that bullseye has kind of been moving around. Yesterday, I think we were forecasting somewhere around 9 to 10 inches around Voiles Parish. So that has dropped off significantly, which is good news if we're up in that area. But keep in mind, take it all with a grain of salt. That could change again as soon as tomorrow. South-southeasterly winds, 15 to 20, gusting to as high as 30. the threat for Avoyelles Parish, marginal risk on Tuesday. I don't have it on here, but the slight risk does also extend into Avoyelles Parish for Wednesday. So again, the higher risk for severe weather on Wednesday. Allen Parish, we're going to be looking at, let's see, it's about what, 7 inches of rainfall Wednesday and Thursday of the 8.5 total. And again, that's a little bit lower than we were forecasting yesterday. Southeasterly winds 20 to 25, gusting to 30, with the slight risk of severe weather on Wednesday. Jeff Davis Parish, we're looking at 6.5 of the 8 inches anticipated falling on Wednesday and Thursday. Southeasterly winds 20 to 25, gusts to 35, because again, we're coming back down right along the I-10 corridor there, so we're expecting winds to be a little higher as we get closer to the coast, and then that slight risk for severe weather on Wednesday. Evangeline Parish, looking at, let's see what we got there, 5.5. I'll do my math real quick in my head. Of the 6 3/4 inch that we're anticipating will be on Wednesday and Thursday. Winds 20 to 25, gusting as high as 30. And the severe weather threat marginal is going to be on Tuesday, and then the slight risk on Wednesday, so the higher threat again on Wednesday. St. Landry Parish, we're looking at about 4.25 inches of rainfall of the 5.25 total. So again, the vast majority of rainfall expected will be Wednesday and Thursday. Winds are going to be south-southeast about 20 to 25 miles an hour with gusts up to 30. And our severe weather threat, again, marginal on Tuesday and slight risk on Wednesday. So the higher threat is Wednesday. Acadia Parish, 5 inches of the 6.25 inches that we are forecasting in total will fall on Wednesday and Thursday. Winds out of the south-southeast, 20 to 25, gusting to 35, with a risk of severe weather, the same. Marginal risk on Tuesday, slight risk on Wednesday. And going back to St. Landry and also Acadia, you can see here the 5.25 for St. Landry and the 6.25 for Acadia is fairly significantly lower than what we were looking at yesterday. So that's good news for that downward trend, but keep an eye on that because, you know, it could bump right back up as soon as tomorrow with the new forecast coming out. For Vermilion Parish, we're going to be looking at about 5 3/4 inches total with about, looks like about 3 3/4 inches there. No, that's not right. 2, 3, 4, 4.5 inches of rain Wednesday and Thursday, with southeasterly winds 20 to 25, gusting to 35. Again, you know, we're right on the coast there. That's where your strongest winds are going to be. And then the severe weather threat marginal on Tuesday and slight on Wednesday. Lafayette Parish, we're going to be looking at about 3 3/4 inches of rain Wednesday and Thursday, with a total of about 5 inches over the 5-day period there. South-southeasterly winds 20 to 25, gusting to 35. With the marginal risk on Tuesday and the slight risk on Wednesday. And Lafayette Parish is another example of significantly lower rainfall totals than we were looking at yesterday. But, you know, as I said, you know, that could change fairly quickly. Iberia Parish, looking at about 2.5 of the 3.5 inches we were anticipating for a total falling on Wednesday and Thursday. South-southeasterly winds 20 to 25 with gusts to 35. Marginal risk on Tuesday, slight risk on Wednesday. This might be the most dramatic example of that change I've been telling you about. Iberia Parish, I think we were forecasting 9 inches of rain actually yesterday. So that's dropped off fairly significantly from where we were yesterday. And you can kind of get that impression as we move further east into south central Louisiana. Those numbers are a lot lower than we were estimating yesterday because that bullseye has kind of shifted off to the west a little bit. St. Martin Parish, more of the same. Their rainfall is actually spread out pretty evenly across most days except for Thursday. We're expecting actually the most rain on Thursday in St. Martin Parish with a total of about 3 3/4 inches. South-southeasterly winds 20 to 25 with to 35, and the marginal risk for severe weather Tuesday and the slight risk for severe weather Wednesday. And finally, just as yesterday, I should switch these around so St. Mary can be first next time. They've been last twice. But certainly not least, Thursday, we're expecting the most rain at about 2 1/4 inches, with a total of about 3.75 inches expected across the entire event. South-southeasterly winds 20 to 25 with gusts to 35, and then the slight risk for severe weather on Tuesday, or marginal risk for severe weather on Tuesday, I should say, and slight risk for Wednesday. Now that's going to wrap up our county by county and parish by parish. Again, if you have any questions about any of this, we can certainly go back and take a look at it again. If you have a question on Facebook, just shoot us a comment in the little comment section there. If you're on YouTube, send an email to the email on your screen there, donald.jones@noaa.gov, and we'll definitely answer that. And let me start off by a question that I got yesterday that I kind of anticipate we may get this evening. We have not received any word as of yet with regards to school closures across the area. I have heard that school boards been in contact with a few of the school boards today, and they are considering the possibility of school closures on Wednesday, perhaps Thursday, but it's definitely not going to be something that they're going to be. No schools are expected to be closed for Tuesday. If schools are going to be closed, it's going to be more of a Wednesday or Thursday event. Let me jump back here to Calcasieu Parish real quick. I put something on here that I actually didn't mention. We received word late this afternoon that the Sulphur Mines Fest, which I think was scheduled for this weekend, has been canceled as a result of the potential weather event. Now, we're actually not expecting too much in the way of rainfall Friday and Saturday, but just the anticipation for so much water being on the ground and the possibility that it hasn't run off yet and just the very soggy conditions, they decided to go ahead and cancel that event. But as I mentioned, not expecting, or we haven't heard about any school closures as of yet across the area, but that will be a possibility, it looks like, perhaps Wednesday or Thursday, depending on exactly how much rainfall we see Tuesday and perhaps even early Wednesday. Chances are, if a decision is going to be made on that, it'll probably be made sometime late tomorrow afternoon, early tomorrow evening. So kind of stay in the loop with regards to that. Let me go ahead and run back to Facebook here and see if we have any other questions coming out. Let's see. Amy says, thanks for the detailed heads up. You're certainly most welcome. We're happy to do it. Not seeing too much in the way of questions here. We were very inquisitive last night. I think I had something like 20 or 30 questions yesterday. So perhaps we're just all well aware of what's going on. Let me jump over to the email here, see if we've got any questions from our YouTube viewers. Not seeing anything there either. Let's see. Oh, wait, here we go. Marla asks about severe weather in Assumption Parish. That actually kind of falls outside of our area, but let's take a look at the map here so we can see it on there. Let me jump back to the severe weather graphics here. There we go. I actually can't see it too well over here, but it looks like Assumption Parish, which is down in this area here, is actually kind of split between the slight risk and the marginal risk area for Wednesday. Tuesday, not expecting anything in the way of severe weather. In fact, I'd be pretty surprised if you saw much of anything with regards to rainfall down there tomorrow. Most of that activity is not going to be until Wednesday, but we do have a marginal to a slight risk for severe weather for the Assumption Parish area on Wednesday. Let's see. Sandra asked, what's the rain total for Vernon Parish? Let's run over to Vernon Parish real quick. All right. Officially, 10 inches. Now, may not actually see 10 inches. Oh, I was going the wrong way here. Most of that activity, as I mentioned, is going to fall on Wednesday and Thursday. Actually, tomorrow, we're probably looking at less than an inch of rain. So you may just see a couple of passing showers or a thunderstorm tomorrow. Most of the activity is going to be Wednesday and Thursday, and then things start to taper off as we go into Friday and Saturday. But Wednesday and Thursday, those are going to be your big rain-making days as far as this whole event goes, looking at about an 8.5 inches expected over that 2-day period for Vernon Parish. Let's see, any other questions? Nick asks, are any closures expected? Dang, autocorrect. I can relate to the autocorrect problem. As I mentioned, the decisions on school closures are going to be made on Wednesday. Well, not Wednesday. They're going to be made for Wednesday. They're probably going to be made sometime tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening. So at this point, we haven't heard anything about any school closures. The only closure or cancellation that we've heard of at this point is the Mines Festival in Sulphur. But if you do have an outdoor event, I would certainly anticipate that it would be either postponed or canceled due to all of this rainfall. And then we'll hear more about school closures or government building closures or any other closures. Chances are most people are going to make that decision tomorrow because the most significant parts of the event aren't going to be until Wednesday or Thursday. Nick also says, turn around, don't drown. That's our catchphrase around here, is turn around, don't drown when we have a significant flash flood event. It's very good advice. And basically what it means is don't drive through floodwaters. And that's certainly something we could be dealing with here Wednesday and Thursday is water across roadways. And there's several reasons why you don't want to drive through floodwaters. Obviously, the most immediate is your car could stall out or could get swept away, which poses a direct threat to your life and, of course, to the life of your property as well. But also, driving through floodwaters tends to push those floodwaters out and could potentially push them into people's homes. And that's, something you certainly don't want to be responsible for. So anytime you run into floodwaters, no matter how deep you think it is or how shallow you think it is, it's always a good idea to, as we say, turn around, don't drown. Turn around and find a better route or a route that's not covered in water. Nick also asks, after his turn around, don't drown comment, will anybody experience, or any area experience travel delays or closures? Obviously, we can't forecast that in advance, but I certainly expect that somewhere, probably several locations, will experience travel delays or road closures as a result of the flash flooding we're expecting to see. Now, to tell you exactly where, again, kind of like forecasting the exact location of the highest rainfall total, it's pretty much impossible to say until you're actually, in the event itself. But I certainly do expect at least some delays or closures with regards to all of this rain we're going to be seeing. Somebody asked yesterday about air travel delays. And that's certainly a possibility, especially on Wednesday when we're going to be dealing with the potential for that severe weather. Aircraft can usually get through a shower without much more than a few bumps during takeoff or landing. But if we do have a lot of lightning and a lot of severe weather or severe thunderstorm moving over an airport, that will often lead to a delay or a cancellation of a flight because taking off in those kind of conditions where you could potentially have winds blowing in all different directions at 40, 50, 60 miles an hour, it's just not worth the risk of the plane essentially kind of almost tipping over due to to those kind of what we call shear winds blowing perpendicular to the aircraft as it's taking off or landing. That's actually been the result of numerous aircraft accidents over the years. So if we expect, or if they expect that kind of situation, then they'll certainly delay or cancel flights at your nearest airport. Let's see, Ellie asks, streaming is horrible. I missed the Voiles. I know, I understand completely. We're struggling, especially for those of you watching on Facebook Live with our Wi-Fi connection. So it may not be you. It may, in fact, be us. But let's jump back to a Voiles for Ellie's sake. Hopefully she can actually see us now. And if not, both of these recordings, both the one on YouTube and the one on Facebook, are going to be available as a recording just as soon as this live briefing ends. So you can go back and actually see it without having to worry about a live streaming feed and get all the details you're looking for. For Avoyelles Parish, Much like everywhere else, Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to be looking at the highest rainfall totals, 3 inches, or 3 inches on Thursday, 1.5 on Wednesday, for a total of about 4.5 over that 2-day period, and then 5.5 total for the 5-day period. So Wednesday and Thursday is going to be your big day. But as I mentioned before, this number is actually quite a bit lower than what we were anticipating yesterday. So, you know, that kind of bouncing back and forth is going to happen as we move into this event. So keep an eye on it. Tomorrow we'll certainly be posting graphics. We're not going to do another one of these live briefings tomorrow, but we will be posting all of these rainfall graphics that you saw here, all of those updates to our Facebook, Twitter pages, and all of our social media accounts to keep you up to date. So about 5.5 inches total expected across the Voiles Parish right now. Winds are going to be out of the southeast, 15 to 20, with gusts as high as 30, and then a marginal risk for severe weather, which is a very low risk, on Tuesday, and a slight risk, which is a little bit higher, expected for Wednesday. So if you're going to see severe weather across the Voiles Parish, chances are it's going to be on Wednesday. Let's see if we got any other questions here for YouTube. Kristen wants to know about Jasper County. Let's jump back to Jasper County. Jasper County, you're going to kind of be in or much closer to that bullseye because Jasper County is further west. So we're going to be looking at higher rainfall totals across Jasper County. We're looking at a total of right around 11 inches for the 5-day event, with most of that coming Wednesday and Thursday, although Tuesday we're still looking at up to about 1.25 inches, which is certainly enough to wet the ground and get it saturated in advance of this very heavy rainfall that'll be coming Wednesday and Thursday. 5.25 inches expected on Wednesday, 3.75 inches expected on Thursday. Winds are going to be south-southeast, about 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 20. And then we'll be looking at a slight risk in Jasper County that'll actually be both Tuesday and Wednesday. So you're going to have about an equal threat for severe weather Tuesday and Wednesday across Jasper County. So unfortunately it's a long duration event, so you're going to kind of have to keep your eyes and ears on the weather for really the next few days, just to make sure that you're not under any imminent threat. Oh, let's see what else we got here. Jelani asks about Lafayette Parish. Let's see. Let's take a look at Lafayette Parish here. Now, Lafayette Parish being kind of in the south-central part of Louisiana, or the Acadiana region, as we call it, not expected to see quite as much as we initially anticipated yesterday. Rainfall totals right around 5 inches, with still most of that rain expected on Wednesday and Thursday. So about 3.75 inches of that is expected on Wednesday and Thursday, with just about anywhere from about 1/4 to 1/2 inch expected Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday. Winds are going to be out of the southeast, 20 to 25, gusting to 35. So while you won't have to necessarily deal, at least in the current forecast, you won't be dealing with the crazy amounts of rainfall. You are going to be looking at some very windy conditions across Lafayette. And that'll be tomorrow and Wednesday. The winds will probably die down a bit for Thursday and for the end of the week, but tomorrow and Wednesday are going to be the very breezy days across Lafayette Parish. And then we've got a marginal risk for severe weather, which is the very low risk for tomorrow, Tuesday. And then we've got a slightly higher risk, which is to say a slight risk for severe weather in Lafayette Parish on Wednesday. So your bigger threat for severe weather is going to be on Wednesday in Lafayette Parish. All right, let me jump back to the email here, see if anybody's got any emails from the YouTube. None that I can see. And it looks like we have answered just about all the questions from Facebook as well. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. Again, like I said earlier, this is going to be our last briefing associated with this event. So look for continued updates on our Facebook page, on our Twitter page, as we go through this event tomorrow and through the rest of the week. And hopefully, God willing, we'll all get through it unscathed. But it's very important to be prepared better to be safe than sorry would be the appropriate phrase for this situation. But thank you for joining us again this evening. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And everyone have a great evening. We'll talk to you again soon. Have a good night.